Welcome to the Gallery, a Premier Arts Collective podcast. And before we get too deep into a number of episodes, we wanted to first share the story of who we are as an organization, why we do what we do, and also, if there's one thing that you have taught me, it's that somebody's history, whether it be an individual or an organization, that history tells a story. By you, I mean Gene Krcelic, CEO of Premier Arts Collective, and you've been here since seemingly the very beginning. So let's dive right into this story, which is both the story of you as an individual as well as the organization, the genesis of you in the nonprofit world and the genesis of the Premier Foundation having employees are one and the same essentially, but briefly walk us through maybe a little bit of your journey that led to a point where you're accepting a job with the Premier Foundation, becoming their first ever employee and beginning that journey.
Yeah, man. Thanks, Logan. I appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit, tell the story. Our stories in our life, who we are, as we sit here today, it's the sum total of all of our relationships and interactions, our family, our church, our friends, our enemies, everything. And it forms us. And we individually, we act differently based on every interaction we have, which is a beautiful thing. That's what makes us all very, very unique. For me, my life, I never thought I would be doing what I'm doing in a million years, man. As a kid, even as an adult, running a nonprofit organization, much less a nonprofit ministry. Not to say that I'm not a believer, and because I am, it's my journey to understanding the truth. It took a while. Although born and raised Catholic, now, attend a Presbyterian church. I don't like labels. I'm a follower of Jesus.
Right.
In my role before I ever started, I knew of this organization. I was running a sports, music, and entertainment company. We had a record label, was started as a secular label, ended up being a Christian label with a major record deal with the largest record company in the world. We represented professional athletes, football players, basketball players, produced events. In 2008, when we were really having success, a record deal was in place. We had an artist who had a number 2 song in the country. We had other artists in the pipeline getting ready to be released. We had a player who won the Super Bowl. It was in the NFL. There's a lot of things that were positive, but the economic downturn of 2008 was tough, man.
Right.
Really hard on a lot of people. So we came to the conscious decision to, really shut the company down and move on. So what did I do? Along this path, I'd written a book, right? I was writing bits and pieces of this book about my faith journey. I was able to take some time off. I was very fortunate when we shut it down. We were dealing with a lot of things. I had some time to breathe, but not a lot of time to breathe.
Right.
And this book that I wrote was really my faith journey of how I got to where I was. And it was tumultuous, but it was enlightening. After going on a mission trip to New Orleans, what happened there really was transformational with me. I realized who I was, and that was, man, I wanted to help people. I wanted to serve people. So I want to do for the rest of my life. And, it's funny how you ask God for things, because sometimes he delivers on what you're asking. Most times he always delivers. It's only if your eyes are open,
right,
seeing clearly to see what the answer is. And he gave me that opportunity by helping shut that company down. I didn't know it because it was some hard times.
Right.
During the path, I met a guy named Gary Gentry, who was in the music business. He was a owner of Premier Productions and Premier Christian Cruises, the largest Christian music promoter in the world. They own Winter Jam and a variety of other tours and produced a lot of events. And, like this guy, brought him to the studio when we were trying to get our company, really on the good foot after we got our major record deal because we knew if we could be aligned with them, then we would have a good opportunity for success. Nothing ever came of that at that point. And then about, 9 months later, 10 months later or so, I called him, told him that, we were closing the company. And then took some more time, got together again, and I said, I know you guys have a foundation, the Premier Foundation, but there's nobody running this organization. I want to run that if I could. I'd love to work there. Not necessarily run it, but work there. But there was no jobs there. It was just an organization that was giving money away on a regular basis based on the blessings they put into it. So without a position, I then applied for a bunch of jobs, starting another nonprofit organization that was primarily focused on disaster relief, Hope Disaster Relief. So, to make a long story short, without all the details, because I can get down a rabbit hole, they offered me a job to come and run the organization, Premier Foundation, a private trust, in 2009. And it was timely. I couldn't believe it. It was like when I got the call that they actually wanted me to run the organization, man. It was like I was in a dream. I couldn't believe it. You've had those dreams. You just can't. It's too good to be true. And I welcomed it. And it wasn't going to be easy. Really wasn't sure what I was going to do. I was going to have to raise money and then figure out how we're going to give it away. Essentially a blank sheet of paper. Figure it out.
Because what was the Premier Foundation? Remind me when they were established.
Yeah, in 1998, Roy Morgan and Gary Gentry collectively put some of their personal money in to start this. They were blessed through their businesses and wanted to do some really good charitable work. And they were donating money to faith-based organizations, churches, causes. Very strong believers, and they wanted to, continually seed back into the kingdom and into organizations that weren't just serving Christians, but they were serving everybody,
right?
All of God's kids. And there was really no definitive direction that they were going in, but it was a faith-based ministry and wanting to be the hands and feet of Christ. So it was precise yet ambiguous, which was fine.
They're being the hands and feet by giving to others who are more boots on the ground, being the hands and feet, who other nonprofits say, we would love $20,000 because we need to do this. The Premier Foundation at that time is giving that money to that organization to execute that cause.
Correct.
You become the first employee and you're running the organization at the same time. What is the mission of the organization, and then what are you responsible for in terms of continuing that mission or taking it in the direction it needed to go in?
Right. It was a fairly lengthy mission, but it was all Christ-centered in that capacity. So when I had the opportunity to begin, it was supporting a lot of the ministries that they were already supporting, because we needed to be consistent, continue to do that. But as a private trust, the majority of the money in a private foundation is coming from a very limited number of sources. It's a 60-month process, 5 years from the time that you file until you get that certification. And
to go from private to public.
Correct. And I knew that, for this thing to succeed, it was going to have to be that way, because they made it clear to me, we're going to support this a little bit, but Gene, you better be out there raising money. That's what this thing is all about.
Right.
And after 5 years, we received that certification. We had to operate as a public charity, although we were still defined by the IRS as a private foundation. It's a lot of details in it. So what you don't know, you better learn quick. So getting that opportunity, there were some things that needed to be cleaned up, because these guys were very successful. They were on the board, but they were successful doing these other things and wanted to give. And, in the charitable world, there's a lot of rules and regulations and filings and all of those things. So they were of the mind, we're essentially going to shut it down, give all the money away, and we're just going to focus on our businesses, and we're still going to be charitable in our personal giving and in their organization's giving, or we're going to bring somebody on. And that was me coming on and setting some things in order. So, my parameters were stay close to that, stay on that mission statement, but it was very large. So we honed the mission statement down a little bit, then it got honed again. Rebecca Gregory worked with me part-time. She's been with me since the very beginning. She's now the chief operating officer for the organization. But we made it up as we went, but we followed the path that God had laid in front of us. One relationship to another, one dot to another dot, and never taking for granted the first dots, along whatever your timeline is or your progression. We never forgot that. And we knew that the more people got to know us, know what we're doing, the more engaged they would become. But it's hard when you're kind of starting from scratch.
Right.
So we went down the grant route a while where people would apply to us and we would evaluate what they were wanting to do, and $500 or $1,000 there. There was money in the bank, but we were losing money significantly for the first 3 years. Just your general overhead, which wasn't a lot, but I mean it adds up. Accountants, attorneys, health insurance. The small salaries or hourly wages, the people that we would work with externally, your website, office supplies, all of it.
Right, because your first order of business is not only, hey, let's go raise some money because we went from a private foundation to a public nonprofit. We're now your boots on the ground in these places as well. Mm-hmm. Not only doing that, but also, you're learning with the IRS what does going from a private to a public. That's a big undertaking. All the while you're saying, hey, here's a blank sheet of paper, go
Correct.
Raise money and do good.
Correct. Yes. It was like launching an organization because you're starting from scratch, because it was moreover a shell in a good sense that there had no overhead. There was no debt, and we've never had any debt. Right. So we're in a very, very good position, but figuring out the relationships and how you're going to do it. And then after a while, giving money away to organizations, it becomes somewhat as a public charity, as foundations do it. Yeah, here's X number of dollars. Go do your thing. But we really were missing some things. We weren't, by doing that, you're not thoroughly engaged. We wanted to be involved with the people that we were working with. We wanted to get our hands dirty too, on the ground, helping and assisting, not only financially, but in the work that they were doing. So as we're continually figuring out ways to make money on their cruises, like the Caleb cruise and the Girls Getaway cruise, or whatever cruise was going on at that point in time that Premier Christian Cruises was producing, we would have silent auctions on there, and we would sell autographed guitars and auction those things off, et cetera, and a variety of other things, and we would raise money on them. And we would go into ports, and somebody had a brilliant idea. It wasn't mine. It was somebody came to us who was working at the other organization and said, when we go in these ports, why don't you, it would be really cool if we did mission work, like a mission excursion instead of your traditional excursion. So we began to do that, and it was, for me, knowing what my roots were in disaster relief and really working on the ground in tough situations. Every port that you go into, you might look really nice on, where the waterfront is, but you go a couple streets over and you're like, wow, it's like a disaster area.
Yeah.
And very poor, poverty-stricken, beautiful Caribbean islands. And we started to do that work. And along this way, while we're figuring out things we're doing, meeting people, the people that were on the mission excursions, they became donors, and some people got really engaged, others didn't, but those experiences were beautiful.
Right.
So we're raising money that way, one-on-one donors. We're having dinners with potential donors, trying to tell the story of this organization just doing good. A lot of different good. Still.
Give us some examples. A lot of different good. Give some examples of what y'all are doing, where you're at.
Hurricane Katrina destroyed Lower Ninth Ward in almost every church, 70 some churches that were there. And, 5-6 years later, there were only about 20 churches that had been rebuilt or survived. So we partnered with the church down there, and we raised the money to finish completion of building the church, which took a long time, almost a decade, for us to raise the money and deal with contractors and unscrupulous people in New Orleans. It's hard. But that was something that we did. Partnered with another organization that was putting together food packets and then would distribute them in other countries. We, at that point in time, earlier on, we would made a donation to like Hands and Feet, an orphan care program down in Haiti. Just a variety of things like that. We, in Greenville, South Carolina, where we're based, we weren't doing a whole lot. Everything seemed to be international. And it seemed to be a result of people that we met on these cruises or places that we met on the cruises. So a lot of feeding, maybe some building projects. Always enjoyed the mission capacity of bringing people along. Did some work in Africa with an organization in the Kawangware slum. We supported them financially, and we're looking at doing a music program down there with them. Met with the Ministry of Music in Kenya, but really wanted to support helping save lives in these slums, man. If you've ever been to them, I know you've been to Africa, you've seen some pretty gnarly things yourself. The need is there. So sometimes it's confusing when you don't have a specific direction and you want to help, and there's so many different ways you can help, whether it's a food ministry or whether it's an expansion or whether it's mentoring or providing shoes, whatever it may be.
Right.
So we're in this odd place of wanting to be more engaged and attaching our name and our relationships to other people. So we would go and we would tell a story. You as a potential donor, I tell you the story of the work that we're doing in Cambodia, right? And it's really not the work we're doing, it's the work somebody else is doing, but we're partnering with them. So whenever there's good work being done, whether it's a supporter saying we've done this, we've done that, there's a lot of people that claim that it's theirs and they're doing it. There's a lot of people out there that say they discovered Hootie and the Blowfish, whether it's the A&R person or the first guy that ever played it on radio, or whether it was the first person that ever booked him in a club. A lot of people claim that it's theirs, but
it's really the University of South Carolina's.
That's right. Exactly. So you realize that a lot of people have a hand in this. So we were just telling other people's stories. Were we engaged? Was it a part of our story? Yes. But still, it wasn't our story. And that was always something that was tough. The old elevator speech, right? How do you tell somebody, what are you doing? And golly, man, it all depends. We're a humanitarian, faith-based organization. Well, what does that mean, right? So it was hard. But along that path, a guy very important in my faith journey, Tim Robertson, introduced me to Jared Emerson, an artist. He had a studio down on the Reedy River. And when Jared and I met, great friends, became really, really good friends. Very talented young man. He's a speed painter, paints with his fingers. He does it for fundraisers, does on concert tours, private functions, corporate functions. He's also a studio artist. And man, it was just, wow, a faith-based artist and the work that he does and the platform that he has. And he was having success. My former business, I was, in the business of representing talented people. And as our relationship continued, I was like, man, we should do an event together, maybe raise money for the foundation. He was like, yeah, let's do it. And we did it. We did another one. And then finally we agreed that we would represent him. He had asked me, and the thought was, I could represent him on the side. A lot of people in business, they have their business and they got a side business.
Right.
Unfortunately, a lot of people in ministry have the ministry, then they got these side businesses. The side businesses often intersect and it becomes murky, and that's how people get in trouble.
Right.
So I'm not trying to make money. Personally, it's not that I'm independently wealthy, which I am not. It's that I don't money doesn't drive me. It's the challenge of creating something and doing something that seems to be unachievable. And it might mean that you're going to lose money or make zero money, or it might mean that there's a windfall, but that didn't drive me. It was doing these things that were great.
Right.
So Jared and I start working together. I mean, we signed a contract. We had a 1-year contract for us to manage him. And what that meant is Premier Foundation managed him. He does a gig. He makes money. We make a percentage off of it, a traditional manager-agent type relationship. But instead of it, going to me, the money went to the organization. And organizationally, that was a way to raise money.
Right.
If I do my job and we do more events together, I mean, he was on Winter Jam painting on the Winter Jam tour. If we do more things together and the paintings go for more money, then we're going to be making more money. So it was a significant fundraising vehicle for us, in addition to all the traditional fundraising vehicles that could go down. Little did I know how that relationship would change me personally, how it would change Premier Foundation, how it would change people's lives around the world.
Right.
As we continue to do that, then he would go on the mission excursions with us. And then I would convince him to do some things that were totally charitable in nature, where he would get nothing in return other than this is just the right thing to do, and it's a good thing. And offers his testimony, and people are just overwhelmed at what he's able to do, what his gifts are from God, and how it is transformational to watch. Here's the thing, man. This is a dude that finger paints for a living, right? And how can a finger painter transform people's lives? It does. You have to experience to see it. Along that path, we, because of his work and a donor introduced us to a young man by the name of Troy Murray up in Detroit. He had very tumultuous life. His parents were really super supportive of what he was doing, but he'd been in and out of like 6 rehabs. His life had been, I don't call it a tragedy, because there's so much beauty in the adversity that he went through as a young adolescent until he got sober. And family's strong believers, and they introduced us into it, and we began to manage him. And he started going on some mission-related events with us. So with Jared and with Troy, when we would go and do, especially in other countries, we were able to engage people with the arts, and
which is new in the path organizationally.
Totally new. It was consistent. Again, with Jared, been with this organization 16 years. I think Jared and I have been together in the organization for 14 years. And we would just do a lot of things together. So we ultimately had our annual fundraiser with Jared, which became an art show and began to engage people more and more. And with Troy, the same thing, really supporting what he was doing, seeing talent. We would work together on events. But the mission work is where these guys thrived, where they thrived, and people would see the work that they were doing. So as we were doing a lot of different things, art was consistent. Plus, we were the nonprofit arm of the world's largest Christian music promoter. And music is the arts, and everybody who's listening to this, if you tell me that music hasn't affected your life in some way, I don't want to call anybody a liar, but I would say that they're not telling the truth, right? That song, or those songs, or that time, how sometimes people are just overwhelmed, and music will set them on a path to getting back to neutral.
Right.
Arts are the same way, visualizing arts or participating in arts. So there are a couple of seminal stories along this path. Prior to that, is there anything else that you think that I might be missing that you want to know prior to our trip to Cambodia?
No, I don't think so. I mean, just I think the the beautiful thing, or where this is leading, and where Cambodia is the kind of the linchpin moment, is just the journey of Premier Foundation when you started in 2009. It's like a mile wide, right? I mean, some of the stories that you even shared personally of where you've been, and in the Middle East and Detroit, New Orleans, wherever it may be, and then just how God introduced you to Jared through your friend Tim, and then all of a sudden the arts, like you just said, Christian music has always been there, but the arts really kind of became this recurring theme that we organizationally didn't have any idea where it was going to take us. And then that leads to Cambodia, where it's kind of this light bulb. Oh my goodness, this is
100%.
This is more than just watching somebody paint, or more than just listening to music. While that is impactful, this story is the turning point that really kind of sparked where we are today.
Right. How do you get to Cambodia? Well, we can trace it way back, and I've done that with almost all the places where we are now. I trace it back, and I remember the person that introduced me to this person that introduced me to that, a NASCAR driver, stock car, Michael McDowell, who I met on the K-Love cruise, introduced me to another person who introduced me to somebody else. And then I was in Sonoma at a race with Michael, met somebody who was on the board with Agape International Missions. And then I went to an event that they did. And what they do is they rescue girls who were, bought and sold and raped, sex trafficking, man. I kind of pause when I think about it, because I don't even know how to categorize it. It's just a horrible situation, dark. But there's an organization led by a man by the name of Don Brewster, who set out to plant a church in Cambodia, ended up realizing that sex trafficking is as bad as it ever has been, and moves there and sets up an organization that begins to put pimps out of business, rescue girls, and then provide them a Christ-centered life and a place to live, and teach them a trade. And just overwhelming, man, the work that they've done and what they've accomplished, without going into all the details of it, because it is an epic story of Agape International Missions. Again, somebody knew somebody. That's how we got to know him. I ended up in Cambodia and was just blown away. When you go to a mission field, when you go to a place where the work is being done and you see it firsthand, it's different than any story that you've ever heard about it.
Right.
Overwhelmed, and man, we got to do something with you guys, whatever it is. Whatever it is, financially supporting it, creating a program, purchasing their T-shirts, what can we engage in? Again, there had been this consistent theme of art. Troy Murray went with me a couple times to Cambodia. Did some art programs for the girls. It was amazing. And we didn't know what we were doing. I mean, we were trying to figure out what we're going to do on the plane ride over there. Like, what are we going to do to really engage them art? What are we going to draw? How are you going to do it? And, Troy's not necessarily a teacher, but we're all teachers. But, man, when you do this, let's do this. And he did a fine job. He did it again. And then there was one time Jared was unable to make the trip, but his Face of God painting was so famous. I said, let me create an art class around the Face of God piece. We're going to do it over 3 days. And like the first day, we're going to, Jared did a personal video for the girls, and then we showed a live painting of what he was doing, and try to explain the Face of God and the hope that it embodies. And we had it's like an outline of the Face of God that everybody colored, like on the first day. And then on the second day, they had a blank sheet of paper, and we had some paints and pencils and markers. And the prompt was, what does God look like to you? the last thing we need to do is create any type of trigger or anything, and because we didn't want to bring up anything that was bad in a memory, but everything that all the love that they were seeing now was Christ-centered.
Right.
And so they did, and there's a lot of them looked kind of like the face of God that Jared did, because that's they were using as a point of reference. But there were some others, and it was beautiful. So after it was done, we asked the girls, this translated into Khmer. I got up there and I asked if anybody would like to share and tell what that piece means. It's crickets, bro. Well, nothing. I said, well, okay. I did the project with them, so I showed them mine and I talked about it and what does God mean to me. Anybody else? Nothing. Troy's brother, Tyler Murray, who was not working with us at this time, he was like, I'll go. And they loved him. He was a younger guy, was very friendly, and it's great for these girls to see men or males in a capacity that's non-threatening, that is just supporting, and young, good-looking guy, and he was just great, and they loved him. And he went up, did his, and then I think maybe he was the catalyst behind it, because nobody followed me. But after he did it, then a girl raised her hand. She came up there and she did it. It was translated, and girls started to clap, and somebody else went up. They were clapping louder, and then another person came up there clapping louder. They started cheering, and it was bedlam, man. And I relate this to like a cheerleading conference. Everybody is cheering and cheering each other on, and it was. And I'm sitting there just thinking prior to it, man, I hope any of this connects. I hope this makes sense. I hope they're getting something from it. I didn't think they were getting anything from it because I was just caught up in my own, I hope this works. We didn't know what we were doing. Did we? Maybe, maybe not. And then it was so overwhelming when we were leaving. The lady that was in charge, I think she was from Australia or maybe England, and she was the head of the clinical part of this, and she said, I've been doing this a lot of years, and I've never, ever seen the girls support each other like they're supporting each other. And I was overwhelmed. I was thankful that something worked, and I couldn't believe the reaction. It was overwhelming. The next day, we had all the girls take their hands, put them in the paints, the same hues of Jared's Face of God painting, right? Put them on black paper. We had hundreds of these hands, different colors. Finally took them back, and Jared took those hands and cut them out and created a Face of God painting out of those hands. And it was a representation for me that those hands, those places that they've been, what they've had to endure.
Right.
They're made by God, man. And those hands then were put into this painting, this piece of artwork that's absolutely gorgeous. Jared did an incredible job. That are the hands that make up God, and they have an opportunity to see that they are a part of this, this beautiful life and love that's embodied by our Father.
Yeah.
And they embody it. There was, man, there's something to this, right? This art thing. Then Troy and I have the opportunity to go to Jordan, working with an organization, a faith-based organization out of California, and to just love on Syrian and Iraqi refugees whose families were murdered, tortured, raped. When ISIS came into their villages, they lost their homes. And we were touring this one school in Amman, Jordan, and I remember seeing these pictures on the wall. They were, children like first, second grade drawings, right? And the prompt for these kids was, and we didn't have anything to do with this. This is just something I witnessed. Troy was painting at some other events that we were doing. But I saw them on the wall, and the prompt was, what was life like in your village before ISIS came? And what was life like in your village after ISIS came? And the juxtaposition of those two was absolutely stark, shuddering. And I was thinking, man, we need to do something like that. It was brilliant and beautiful and sad and glorious, and it's all of it, right?
Yeah, very bold.
Oh, man, bold.
Hey, gallery listeners, I want to take a quick pause in the episode and invite you to join our mission of using the arts as a vehicle of healing and hope. Your gift will directly support our therapeutic arts programs and our initiatives around the world. To financially partner with us, visit our website at premierartscollective.com/give and check out the link in the show notes. Here, you can give a one-time gift or become a member of the curated, our monthly giving community. Thank you so much.
So we come back, and along this path, we met somebody in Cozumel during one of our mission excursions, Anita. She was an art therapist. I'd never met an art therapist before. And I said, these are some of the things that we're doing, this art therapy. And I was getting on this art therapy thing, thinking that this could be a path for what we're doing with our organization, because God had put those pieces in place, introduced us to Jared and Troy, and how they began to engage in our humanitarian and our service work. We want to try becoming a little more definable. We wanted to lean into it more. And I started to learn. I said, but thinking about this is not wanting to trigger the girls when we were doing any type of art class, because there's a lot of bad memories of what they've been through. And the same thing with the kids in Jordan. We got to be careful. We need to be really, really careful, because we could make things worse than make them better.
Yeah, there's a fine balance between building somebody up and giving them hope, or versus just picking off a scab and re-traumatizing or re-bringing up the wound.
Sometimes people have the greatest idea and intention in mind when they go to help, but sometimes they can hurt far more than they can help. So along this way, we're leaning into it. Two seminal moments. They were so important in the realization of the power of art. I mean, the power of it. I've got two guys who love the Lord that are working with our organization, and it's fundraising for us, but it's ministry for us. It's a very interesting dynamic. Unlike almost any other relationship, there's not another organization like ours out there that I'm aware of. It's just that different in how we're raising money and what we're having to go through. Then more people get involved. They really love what you're doing, love what Jared's doing. We're having an annual fundraiser. People are coming. Jared's friends and celebrities, our friends and donors, and we're raising more money and more money. And we're able to put more money in the bank and have a cushion where there was no cushion before. So it allowed us some additional freedom. We got to this point in 2019. Alexis was working with us, and she was really on me. And she's my daughter, by the way, and so she speaks to me in ways that other people don't speak. She was handling our marketing and our programs, and we were still small company. You know her, and you've worked with her for a while. She, because she's my daughter, would just, Dad, I mean, there's really no, this elevator speech, there's nothing definable. How can we go out and sell all these different things? You're doing a project here, you're doing this other thing. There's nothing. What do we do? What do we do? There's always consistently. There's an ad agency, a marketing firm that you know who they are because you worked with them and you were on this. They were very generous to give to us a couple-day workshop to help us redefine who we are. Where are our strengths, our weaknesses? That whole that whole deal. And
like any good marketing agency should.
Oh yeah. And we brought in Anita from Mexico. Jared came and we brought people in because we really wanted input on what's next. Not that there had to be a next, because we were following, I believe, the path God set out for us. But how do we become the best at whatever we're doing?
Right.
And we decided to, during this, the idea is to have this sub-brand, Premier Arts Collective, right? That will be a sub-brand of what we do while we're doing all these other things. This is it. And you probably can tell the story better than I can, because being in it sometimes it's hard to tell it. But instead of the sub-brand, it became abundantly clear after these days that should be who we are. Take a bold move and rename our organization from Premier Foundation, which is general. You can be whoever you want to be with a name like that, right? You can give to whoever you want to give. But if you call yourself Premier Arts Collective, well, you got arts right in the middle, man.
Right.
You're gonna have to define who you are and what you're doing, make it easier to tell the story. But it's a hard transition. It was hard for us to actually take that leap. And with Rebecca, who'd been there from the beginning with me, it was hard to take this leap. We've got a lot of donors who support other programs that we've got. What are they going to think?
Right.
So if you know about the charitable names and what you can and can't change, and how you can't do it, although it's not, if you search us, it might come up Premier Foundation, right? Because that's legally what has to be on there. But the name of our organization, our brand, is Premier Arts Collective. And from that time, and then we launched as Premier Arts Collective when?
September of 2021.
September 2021. You started working with us not long after that.
That was before. I started in August of 21.
Oh, August of 21.
I had a Premier Foundation email. So I got to see the very beginning. I was the account representative at the marketing agency over the rebrand, very, very beginning. And then one tiny pandemic later, I joined in August of 21. And yeah, I got to see the very end of the end of the foundation, the beginning of PAC, which is, journey in of itself.
Yeah. My bad on that, man. Those years
they all blur together.
When people came and when they left. Alexis has gone since and has done other things, but very valuable in just launching who we are as an organization with Premier Arts Collective. And it was rocky. I mean, the goal is let's find some art therapists and music therapists, and let's just create some programs. But who are we going to do it for? It's a new name now. We have to re-educate the people who are already supporting what we were doing. How do we partner with an organization? We didn't have a track record. When you don't have a track record, how do you get hired if you've never had a job?
Because this was going to be a side project.
It was.
Initially, you came in, and we're sitting in this big room. We did the brand evaluation and blah blah blah, and this is a side project. So the things that the big things. Okay, now this is who we are. What do we do? How do we start? Coming into it, you're not thinking about those things because this is a sub identity. This is a side gig. This is, like you mentioned earlier with, I've got this and then I might do this on the side with Jared or whomever. But you're saying, no, this is actually in the same way that you took Jared and said, no, this is a foundation. This is a Premier Foundation thing. Mm-hmm. What was going to be a hustle for a side hustle per se, not really, but for the Premier Foundation actually was, no, this actually is who we are. Mm-hmm. And the heart, if I'm understanding correctly, is, okay, we've seen the power of the arts. We've seen the power of music. We intersect with Anita as an art therapist. Oh, who knew? Turns out there's this thing called art music therapy where the thing that we've been doing but maybe didn't have language to, there's a whole world out there. Let's do that. And that's where, from the marketing agency side, we're saying, this is a faith-centered marketing agency as well. So we were both able to look at each other and say, this is where God has been leading you this whole way, right? And then to be able to go back to 1998 and say, and also the beautiful thing, this is where you've always been in a way, with just the power of Christian music, and then that being the catalyst for all the other things. But yeah, this is where I'm able to be a part of the story from a being there. And yeah, we launched our brand. We're Premier Arts Collective. You should check us out. And then there was we should probably do things. And our mission was, using the arts specifically through these kind of art, music, therapy facets. And we still did things with Jared, but that was a wild ride.
It is a wild ride. And, now, we have a name that's known. We've got organizations around the world that trust us, that believes in what we do, that understands the power of the arts. And it can come in a lot of different forms. It could come in the form of producing an art or music therapy class. It could be in the form of just creating some art activities for an after-school program. It could be painting a mural alongside and engaging girls who might have been rescued from trafficking, or kids in an impoverished area doing an outside mural. It might be sponsoring a faith-based music tour because we know the power of that.
Right.
And we as an organization use it. We use the arts as a vehicle of healing and hope. I mean, what is that? That's very specific, but it's very broad. We do a lot of different things that are in the art and music realm. There are in some instances, we still do some legacy support of organizations that we've worked with many, many years ago, but we don't want to alienate them and our support of them. In some of those instances, there is an opportunity to engage in terms of art and music.
Right.
In other areas, it's supporting them. But who we are, we're an art and music organization. And when you came along with the organization, again, trying to get people to engage with us, to trust us, to know who we are. I'm at an event last night, oddly enough. At this event, somebody introduces me to somebody else, a younger guy, probably, I don't know, he might be like 35. Introduce Gene Krcelic, and we said, well, who are you with? What do you do? Well, I run an organization called Premier Arts Collective. Oh, PAC. You're with PAC? I was like, what? He didn't know you, didn't know anybody with our organization.
It's a miracle.
But knew who we were. I was like, man, I can retire now. I have arrived. Somebody knows who we are because of other interactions. And he first knew who we are because of an event we partnered with an organization called True Line, right? We handled ticketing for them for an event. It was a fundraiser. It was a fundraiser for us. And he attended that, and he knew who we are.
How about
now
that?
He runs a company and gave me his card and said, man, I'd love to support what you guys are doing, because he saw us at an event where we intersected to support somebody else and use it as a fundraiser. Isn't that funny?
How about that?
Yeah, how about it? So we have been very fortunate. And the thing I love about you, you're a big dreamer like me, but you also work really, really hard. You understand the dynamics of what you have to do to put something in place. Our team with Rebecca handling really the admin for everything that we do, as well as admin with the engagement of other organizations. Mm-hmm. Man, to have somebody you can trust who understands it and you don't have to worry about the quality of their work. It's a rarity. I feel the same way. And also Mariah, who works with us, handles our marketing, director of marketing. Everybody gets it. Everybody understands the power of it. I would have to say, I won't speak for Rebecca, but for her, it took her a little longer because she had been engaged with this organization before, she started working here, and she's got a personal, heart belief in what Premier Foundation was doing. So the transition into the arts and music, it took her a while. It took her a minute. But everybody's bought in because everybody understands it. Everybody has seen it. They've been a part of the things that we've done. And when we have people calling us from places around the world and have heard about us, whether it's a Google search or whether somebody knows somebody and they called us, it's really a good feeling.
Yeah.
And that we are doing what God has called us to do. There are so many moments, man, along the path. If you look at it in your life or anybody's life, and you look at them and you just realize how important they are, how big they tend to be. And I always go back to the Field of Dreams. And when Moonlight Graham is in his office, he's an old man, and Kevin Costner is in there. And Burt Lancaster says to Kevin Costner, he says, you don't realize the most significant moments of your life when they're happening. And I just, thinking about that, I could think about that. I'll probably get off this podcast, start thinking about it, start tearing up, because it's such a true statement. You go along every day in your life, things happen, you meet people. Sometimes those moments are monumental. Sometimes they're small moments. But those monumental moments, their significance and their grandeur is only seen in retrospect. You don't realize them when they're happening, and they're massive. But it's important to remember those and how you got to those moments in the first place.
Yeah.
And it's the connecting of the dots and realizing and seeing that there is a path in front of you, but you might not be able to see clearly what's down that path, but you have trust. You've got a faith. And if you continue to serve like our Father, Jesus Christ has led us and has taught us to serve, your eyes become clearer. And it is faith, belief in Jesus Christ. It's a faith. It's believing in the unknown, right? The unseen.
Right.
And that's what we've done with this organization. We've had this faith and this belief. And sometimes it didn't always look like it was going to turn out good, or we didn't know what was around the next corner. How are we going to make sure that we're not losing money? How are we going to make sure that we are serving in the capacity to use our talents the best that we can? The gifts that we gave, Jared's figured it out. He's a finger painter. He realized it, and he's great at it. How can we as an organization, understanding the impact we can have on people, be the best we can? And as you know, there's a small podcast. It's limited. There are a lot of things we're doing. There's a lot of dreams we have that will never come to fruition. We have to discern whether they're our dreams or not, or we're supposed to be in this place. But we need to pursue those things that are laid at our feet to a certain degree and use our discernment to say either, that doesn't seem right, or yes, this is right.
Yeah.
It's relationships, it's programs, it's our deeds.
Yeah.
As we move forward, man. So I know I'm all over the place on things as a story.
That was good. I love that, because that's the story of how we got to where we are today. We spent the majority of time talking about where we've been. The purpose of this podcast, in a way, is to share the stories of where we are now and where we're going, which is beautiful. And so I appreciate you taking the time to kind of lay out. And I know within each, for every 2 minutes that was said about something, there's 2 years worth of dots connected and stories in there. But yeah, that's the journey of us as an organization. My final question, this is gonna be a personal question more than an organizational question. There are times where you've had your sleeve halfway rolled up or all the way rolled up. You've got the tattoo on your arm, right? Which is, you read it for me real quick.
Yeah, man. You may choose to look the other way, but you can never again say that you did not know.
Out of all the stories, all the journeys, trips to Cambodia, Jordan, Greenville, Detroit, what is one moment organizationally on this path, Premier Foundation, Premier Arts Collective, that tattoo? I know there's thousands of stories that go into that, but what's one that sticks out in particular? And we'll end it right there.
In relation to this tattoo, This story for me is when I was in Cambodia, I had the honor, the privilege, the fear, the excitement, the gravity of going into a brothel with an undercover SWAT team. And when you go in, when I went into this, I've been in a few with SWAT teams, and when you go in, I mean, you're just a normal dude looking to buy a girl, right? That's what you have to go in under that guise, because when you go in, every floor, every door, there's a cat with a machine gun, right? In a uniform that says, hey, we're the Cambodian Authority, but we've got machine guns, and you've got plate glass windows that are 20 feet long and 15 feet high, and behind them are tiers of girls sitting, waiting, hundreds throughout the place, man, with a number. And it's just, you pick the number, you can take them in a room for $20 for an hour, whatever it is. But going in, I mean, these guys in the bag, they got a camera, they're taping. I'm in there with some brave cats, man. And it was to show me what was going on. And we went floor after floor, and it was rooms after rooms, man. I mean, it was overwhelming. I also had, man, the blessing of being able to go back into one of those places with another SWAT team with my daughter, Alexis, who was living in Vietnam at the time. And for her to see it and know how overwhelming it was for her, because she's a girl. And it's just, you can never forget it. And, you know, for me, it's one of those things. I would then take this experience back into conversations with people, dinner or whatever, wherever it is. And I would do it in opportune times. If you know me, you know I'll ask questions or I'll say something at a time that is probably inopportune. But I do it because I like a bit of the shock factor being, what? So you tell these stories,
Right.
and people don't believe that this happens. This is happening right now, every day, in places like Cambodia that are larger than that have been government sanctioned to a certain degree, to girls being trafficked right here in Greenville, South Carolina, or any other city, and the level of domestic violence and abuse, or the homeless that you drive by. It's at seeing these things in reality, having the discussions with people that lead a life that never engages them, and that I want people to think and I want people to know, because if I don't let other people know, man, I'm just walking the way. Listen, once you see it, don't tell me you didn't know about it.
Right.
Because it's real. And that's why this is so important to me. It's William Wilberforce. He was an abolitionist who wanted to end slavery, but he knew that in his lifetime he really couldn't end slavery. But if he ended the slave trade from England, if he lobbied as an abolitionist to end that, he knows that that was a step to something that would then happen far beyond his lifetime. So, should have been a shorter story, but that's a story, man.
Yeah.
That's one of so many.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. That's your motivation. That's your mission. That's our mission. And we feel called to use the arts to go into these places and go anywhere, and to show them healing and hope. Yeah, it's been a joy. Thanks for everything. Thanks for all that you've done personally, to shepherd us, steer us organizationally where we are today. And it's a joy to be a part of it. And it's always fun to be able to sit back and listen to just a small part of the journey to where we are today. And we'll see where God takes us in the years to come.
Amen, man. I'm just glad to be a part of the puzzle. I would never figure that I'm any larger than any other piece, but every piece is essential. And I think everybody has the talent that can complete a beautiful work.
Yeah.
And I'm just very thankful that I realized that I have those gifts, those talents to be the agent of good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks for joining us for this episode, and see you tomorrow.
Yes, sir.